So we are live. It's our second Syos live, and I'm really happy to have Dan Forshaw here with me. I'm just back from holidays, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Dan, for coming. How are you?
My pleasure, Pauline. I'm really good, thank you, and it's really good to see you again. It's been too long. It's been over a year since I was able to visit you guys at Syos, so it's great to be here in these rather weird and strange times for all of us.
Yeah. Last time you were here, it was really different. So yeah, I was wondering how things are going for you. How did the COVID crisis impact your life as a musician?
Well, like almost every other musician in the world, really, it's a huge impact. I mean, I started getting paid to play gigs at the age of 16, which was too long ago now. Over 20 years ago. And yet, even before that, I would have been playing concerts as a student, at school concerts. And so I haven't played in front of a live audience probably for the longest time in my whole entire life since picking up a saxophone age 10. So that's been really strange that I've not had that, no gigs in the diary or no kind of performance at all, which has been really strange. Obviously, there have been different things in terms of performances, some recording and things, and I done a couple of live stream gigs, but not playing in front of an audience has been really strange, and not something I'm enjoying, to be honest. There've been positives. I mean, it's been great to spend more time with my children. It's been great trying to find different ways of just slowing life down a little, but I feel there's been this a sort of divide coming in. I don't know what it's like for you guys in France or around the rest of the world, but it seems to have been, there have been people who have been incredibly busy because their work is just, you're working from home and juggling family, or there are people who are just spending all day watching Netflix in their pajamas. And both sides are kind of seem to be jealous of the other side, kind of the people in watching Netflix in the pajamas are kind of like, well, I want to get out and go back to work and do things. And those people who are, never seem, for me, I either seem to be looking after my children or working. I never seem to be, I'm watching the box sets that I always thought I want to watch. But it's been, the biggest thing I've missed, is playing to live people live in a room and being able to see their reaction to good music, which has been the hardest thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I guess all that crisis brought people back to the internet, and so people had to reinvent themselves and try to find a way to share their music.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think one of the great things about particularly jazz musicians, but all musicians, all creative people, is we're all quite creative. We're all creative. We're all looking for another way of doing things. When a door closes, it's not the end. We try and find a new way to express ourselves, and it's been great to see so many people combining together, like Chad's done with his big band stuff. And there's been, I did a couple of projects for a few people where I've recorded things, and then it's all come together. And that's been really amazing to see how people have done it. I still don't think it's the substitute for doing it live. But I mean, it's been great. There have also been some I need to increase my volume, Josh says. Is that better, Josh? Can you hear me? Is that better? We'll see what use is in there. One of the things I've really noticed again is there's been this divide between musicians that are native to the internet, those of us who spent quite a bit of time on it. Nice one, Josh. And those that are kind of coming to it new. And I think, just sticking a mobile phone with no lighting and stuff like that and suddenly starting to do a Facebook live stream is okay, but actually with a little bit of thought, you can do so much better with it, and you can experiment and reach new audiences. And the live stream gigs that we did, both of them have attracted over 1,000 views, which we would never have got in a club. There's no jazz club in the world that holds more than 1,000 that holds 1,000 people, not anymore anyway. So it's been great to reach out to new audiences that way, but it's been amazing to see how people have got together and collaborated. I mean, how open musicians have been to sharing it online and doing that. But again, you're limited a little bit by your skill set. You have to be able to edit video, or have someone who can edit video, and have someone who's got the skills to be able to arrange everything and start using Logic, which most musicians have done. But sadly, music colleges tend to prepare people a lot for playing the instrument. And of course, it's always been a lot more than that. But I always felt, when I left music college and when I was finishing college in the end of the 20th century, they were giving me an education for what had happened in the previous 50 years, not what was coming up now. And you had to sort of learn all those skills yourself. So I wish I'd had classes in video editing, in how to shoot a video. Thankfully, we've got YouTube, which means you can learn a lot of things from there for free a lot of the time. But to have been able to understand how to go about making even just the cinematography, how do you film something well? You guys are very, very good at that, Syos, in terms of your photography and everything, and those kind of things. I've got to say that you guys have taught me some things about how to present mouthpieces and stuff like that, and equipment. And I think it's something that I'm going on a meandering thing here, but it's we've all had to sort of skill up ourselves on things that we never thought we would have to do, which is kind of one of the things I wanted to talk about today, and see what people have. Is that it's not just been, it never has been just being good at your instrument. One of the things I did through the lockdown is, one of my classes that I teach, my advanced jazz class, we took them through, I kind of condensed the Ken Burns jazz series, the DVDs that were on there that are floating around on YouTube, and we watched all episodes in about 3 or 4 weeks. But one of the things that came up was Duke Ellington, used to have a guy used to run ahead of him and say, "Hey, everyone, the Duke is coming, the Duke is coming." And he would dress very elegantly, and he had this idea of showmanship. It wasn't enough just to be a very, very good musician and a very good composer. There had to be some kind of aura about you. You had to create a showmanship idea about it. You had to have other skills out there, and then it moves on from there.
Yeah, so you wanted to talk about how to be a musician during digital age.
Yeah, during the digital age. Yeah. So I think the first thing to say is, I think throughout life anyway, but certainly when you're online, you've got to be authentic. You've got to be who you are. So one of the things that I've always enjoyed doing is telling stories. I've always enjoyed being the person who will, at the party tell the funny story, or, bring in the anecdote. And therefore, for me, doing vlogs is kind of it's a thing I enjoy doing, and I'm very good at telling a story. Some people are not very good at that sort of side of storytelling. And in a way, you shouldn't have to force it. Try and be something else. If you're very good at, making really, really good improvisation videos, or you're really good at, I can't remember his name, and please forgive me, but the guy who does the beatbox saxophone, he's amazing, and it's something that I couldn't do. It's not my gift. It's not what I'm good at, but, you appreciate it. But that's someone who's gone out there and created something new on that. So if that, we've all got different strengths and weaknesses. So find out what you are, be authentic, and then be you. Get out on YouTube. I think YouTube's amazing. Get out there and start telling your story or your idea. Share your creativity. The biggest mistake I made with YouTube is that I thought it was a place just to stick my gig videos on it, or a couple of mouthpiece reviews every now and again, and that would direct traffic to my website, particularly for teaching at Cambridge Saxophone. But actually, I started vlogging, where are we now, 4 years ago, as a way of doing almost like a video diary of what I was doing on the run up to my Jazz Vespers, which you can currently see. Hang on, this way. Hang on, I can't figure out which way I am on the screen. But basically, when I was doing the Jazz Vespers album, I'd done a Kickstarter project, and about 400 people had contributed, mostly just little £5 here, £10 there. Some people had contributed a bit more. And I wanted to show those people what I was doing with their money. So I started doing this video diary, and that's how my vlog started. And then I kept it going. And I'm even still surprised myself that yesterday I put out episode 582, which is remarkable, because I never thought I'd get beyond 20. But you just start building it. You keep uploading, you find out what your niche is, and you get authentic at it. The second thing is, I was just saying before, try and think outside the box when it comes to your skill set, but keep it into what your passions are, because it's hard going at the start. It's really, really, really difficult at the start to build an audience. You'll get the thumbs down, you get the sarky comments, you get the people trolling you, and it's can become a really difficult part to get through that bit and keep your creativity going. And a lot of people do give up at that point. And my advice is keep going, keep trying to work on your content. Watch people who aren't doing music videos. So, I learned a lot from watching videos by the likes of Pete McKinnon, Casey Neistat, and Marcus Brownlee. They're my top 3 YouTubers that I watch. I really love the way their content is put together. I'm not them. I have to do it my way, but you can learn lessons from those people. You can pick up tips and hints. I don't go fully into the whole kind of grading and making a whole song and dance about the video. It's just, for me, it's about getting the content out there and sharing it. And I do the best I can with it, but it's a question of, we've all got a limited amount of time and resources. I could spend hours on edit. I could spend days putting things together. And sometimes I wish I had that, but it's not always there. So my first thing, be authentic. Secondly, look at skilling yourself up. Find things outside of your own comfort zone, but things that you're passionate about. Maybe it's photography, maybe it is composing. One of the things that I was sharing with Paulin before we came on air was when I started doing my vlog, I started using my own music. I thought it'd be a great way to kind of share my music, make more people aware of my music. And I kept getting copyright strikes against my own videos by my own distributor, which was really unnerving, because it was like, hey, this is my music. And it was even my own original compositions that they were striking against me. So what I did then is I thought, well, okay, what I need to do is write different music for now. I mean, it eventually got sorted, and now I can share my own music on my channel, but it took a little while. But I started going into GarageBand, getting some samples, getting some ideas, just doing a bit of composing, and getting into that habit of writing music again every day. Because I realized, and actually even talking to you guys now about it, I don't do a lot of composing anymore. I really have lost that side of my creativity. I want to get it back. But going back to Duke Ellington again, he said, I don't need inspiration. I need a deadline. And one of the things that's useful about doing a vlog is that you have a deadline of a day. Most of the time you keep it, within a day, and that's what goes on. So my next thing about being a digital musician is you have to understand that you have a massive audience out there, but everyone is encamped in their different things. And you have to, again, and it goes back to point one, be authentic. So I have been at times in my life the person who would want to play 26/2 in 9/8 at about 300 beats per minute. I'm not anymore, mainly because it's not worth the stress trying to practice it to that level for about the small number of people that would actually enjoy it. Whereas playing Chelsea Bridge, like we did in that live stream with my wonderful mouthpiece, and everything just being kind of so easy blowing, so free, and just a beautiful, rich tone of a melody. That's for me. That's what I want to be able to play. That's what I want to be able to listen to. I don't really enjoy listening to someone playing 26/2 at 9/8 at 300 beats per minute. It's just, for me, it's not enjoyable anymore. Maybe that's a part of growing up. I don't know. In my early 20s, I would have been like saying to myself right now, you boring old man. But actually, I don't want to listen to that. So it goes back again to being authentic, telling the story. Find something that fine line between playing something that you really enjoy playing and stuff that people like, not selling out in inverted commas, but trying to find that place where you can play music that people want to listen to. Maybe not everybody, not necessarily talking about being a pop musician, but finding a place where you can play really good music. Like my guys and my mentors do, like the likes of Bramford do, and Joel Fromm does, and those kind of guys, Eric Alexander, they're the guys that I look up to, and in the way they play. So that's the kind of getting towards the end of being a musician in the digital age. Be authentic, find new skills, share your passion, whatever that may be. In terms of, if your passion is playing music and playing tunes, do that. If your passion is telling a story, which is about playing music, tell the story. If your passion is something I've not even thought about, share that. Find a way of just getting it out there and doing it. My final thing would be always be conscious about presentation. And just as within, and I'm aware of the irony of saying this on a mouthpiece manufacturer's chat, but I'm don't fall down the rabbit hole of getting loads and loads of gear and thinking you have all the gear, therefore you must produce great videos. There are more you need to do than that. But don't scrimp on the gear. You know, get yourself a decent DSLR camera, get a decent microphone, you know, get Logic or GarageBand or Cubase, something to edit the audio in so it sounds pretty good, because everyone's going to watch it. But likewise, don't break the bank and get into masses of debt just to be able to, you know, produce the video. You know, you can now these days, smartphones are so good that with some half decent lighting, you can come across and get things over there. So I think that covers a lot of what I wanted to talk about within being a digital musician. I think the final thing would be is try and don't be with your content, try and keep a variety of content to share. So, you know, if you have content that's always about the saxophone, that can get a little boring for people. So share a bit about who you are, what makes you the musician that you are, what tells your story again. I think that's really, really important. As human beings, we love stories. So in some way, keep telling the story of what you're doing. Does that sound good, Paulina? Have I put everyone to sleep, or have we still got people there?
I'm here. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I when you talked about the authenticity, I was thinking that it's the same how we built Syos. It was always also like that. Like we started being on social media and just telling our story because we wanted to be fun. So we were fun and we were just not hiding something, just being who we are and what we wanted to be. And I think it's the real thing to do, because people they don't want to see like someone fake. They just want to see you.
Exactly. So that's the big thing, is that you can't really be a fake much anymore. People will find out. People find, you know, it's too easy now to find out things about people with social. So just be yourself and just be comfortable being who you are, both as a company and as a person, because as a musician, you are a company. Your branding is your name. And you know, you've got to, you live or die by that sometimes, especially online. You know, it's got to be there. So yeah, that's a good observation. And one thing I didn't talk about is sorry, my phone seems to have just gone mad at the moment. There's probably people texting me about this saying, "Now I can see you on the screen." But one of the things I didn't talk about was the live stream gigs, and I had a conversation with a local jazz club owner after I did my first live stream gig, and they were like, well, we really want to do live stream gigs. We think it's the way to go. And I was like, okay, what's your YouTube user base? And they're like, we don't even have a YouTube channel. And I was like, guys, you can't seriously think about trying to start streaming now when you don't even have a presence. So you've got to spend time, as I said before, building it up and going through the tough bits of it and then creating and finding the way to do it. Because I mean, like I said to them, you know, look, I've got over 10,000 subscribers, and I had 100 people tuning in live. So if you've got 100 subscribers, you might get one person, and you're going to go to all that effort for one person. It's really, really difficult. And as well, I was very fortunate that Matt, who sort of manages the studio space where I was at, basically, you know, did it as a freebie for me. I'd had done a few jobs for Matt, and he sort of threw it back to me as a favor. And we got, we did the streaming, you know, he did the streaming for free. We asked for donations, but I knew I was in a position where we weren't walking away with big bucks that night. You know, I was kind of like, I was happy if I was able to pay the musicians in the band and take a little bit home with me, which is what happened. And thankfully I've got, you know, people who support me on Patreon who enabled those gigs really to take place. Because without that, it wouldn't have happened. Now, I know there's been a few musicians who have done Zoom gigs where they basically ticketed it, but it doesn't kind of work. I mean, I've been watching, I think I can say, you know, like with Smalls, they do an amazing job, and I love Smalls to bits with what they do, but their best gig they've had was when they put Winton on it. Winton was on for an hour, and, you know, they had $2.5 grand worth of donations, but still they had something ridiculous like 8,000 views. Now I willingly, to listen to Winton on a Wednesday night live was like, there's my door money, have it. But not everyone was donating, and people won't. And we've got a responsibility as, I hate to say the word, but consumers of the music, to realize that we've got to support it. Otherwise it isn't going to happen. So, if you are tuning into a live stream, if you're not going to put what you would have put in the door fee or buy a couple of, or what your bar bill would have been. Because I used the joke that I said, when we went live on the live stream, I said, look, we don't want your Ronnie Scott's entrance money. We want your Ronnie Scott's bar bill. Because if anyone's ever been to Ronnie Scott's or any of the jazz clubs around here, it's your bar bill that tends to do more damage to your wallet than the entrance fee. And that's kind of what musicians need to do. But we also understand as musicians that venues play such an important role. And when I because I wear another hat where I organize a gig at a local concert hall. I organize the jazz gigs there, and I could program. This was before COVID. I could program, if I just pick the jazz musicians I like that are sending me stuff, I could have jazz on there every week, and I have an audience for 8 shows a year. So it's kind of really, really, really difficult to to see it that way around. But live stream gigs are a way of getting out there and making music so that people can do it. And the first one we did, I remember vividly, as I said, I hadn't got in the car, and I remember loading the gear into the car and being so happy. And normally when I'm leaving to go to a gig, I'm like, here we go, I got the stuff in the car, what have I forgotten? And then get to the gig and it's good. But this time I was so happy just to actually be going out and going to a venue where I knew I was making music with other people, because I think deep down in all of us as humans, we want to make music with other people. We want to do it. It's a social thing. 2 things have existed throughout the whole of human history, and one of them is communal music making in some form. We've always done it. It's something deep within us to either hit something or pluck something or blow down something. It's something that we have, I think, innately within us as humans, to be able to do that with other people.
Yeah. So we have a question from Charles.
Hi, Charles.
Say, should that be teaching performance to use a digital audio working
definitely.
space?
Workstation. Yeah, definitely. I think most music colleges do that now. They do have classes, and even when I was back there, we were still learning on things like the old Ataris on Cubase and goodness knows what else. But yeah, you should be learning how to use Logic and how to harness it. And it's, to be fair, these days Logic is GarageBand is amazing. It's what, £3 on an iPad, and it's got far more power than anything, and it's quite intuitive in the way to use it. But yeah, you should be learning how to use it. You should. One of the things I always wanted to know was how to mix the saxophone properly, because I've had so many arguments with so many sound engineers over the years about what my saxophone should sound like on a recording, because they will mess around with the microphone. They will pull it here, pull it there. They'll do that. And I'm like, it doesn't sound like that. I remember being in St. Paul's Cathedral doing a recording, and a guy, the sound engineer in the rehearsal, kept moving the microphone nearer my soprano. And I kept standing back, and then he kept moving it nearer to me. And I thought, I know what your game is, so I'm going to wait till the performance, and then I'm going to take 15 steps back, because I am not playing in this amazing cathedral under the dome and not having the beauty of that acoustic. I'm just like, you are not adding that later. I'm having the real one. I think as a musician, if you know your way around DAW software, you've got a better idea of what's going on when people are recording you. But yeah, that's, I suppose, short answer to the very long-winded comment is, yeah, people should.
Yeah, the saxophone is really difficult to record because of the tonals. So yeah, it's like the radiation everywhere, and then you don't know where to put the mic. So
I did a video actually on YouTube, you saw it, where I did all sorts of different mic positioning, and I read up on one. I actually put one right behind my ear.
Yeah.
And recorded the sound there, because obviously that's the sound I hear most of the time is how it comes. And actually, it was like, yeah, maybe I should just. A sound engineer friend of mine said, yeah, I'm going to do that every time now. I'm sticking one, and that's the channel I'm going to give you, is the channel that you hear it as the player.
Okay, I will check that video. I didn't see it yet. We have another question from Raphael, who said, was your religious faith instrumental in shaping your understanding and approach to music?
Wow, so that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I came, I deepened my approach to faith through Coltrane, through delving into A Love Supreme, and what was Coltrane getting at there with his album, and what he went on to with that. But I don't. I think music is it's a neutral thing. I think it's like money. I think you can either use it for positives or negatives, or completely amoral things. I think actually going into the deeper things about where does music come from, why do we do it. I mean, one of the things I hinted at before was how we've always done it as humans. We've always had this innate need to make music, and actually there's always been this innate need to make music towards some kind of higher power, even if it was the higher collective. There's a guy called Jeremy Begbie who's written 2 excellent books on a theology of music and an understanding of that from loads of different backgrounds and faiths. And one of the things he says is that really we ought to not talk about music. This is the sort of thing people argue about in Cambridge and in universities especially around Europe. He said we shouldn't talk about music, but musics, plural, because you can't compare a John Coltrane avant-garde solo with a Indonesian nose flute player. They are 2 very, very different kind of understandings. But I think understanding, I guess, if Raphael, as I come round to the answer to your question, I think understanding that the music is not a gift for me personally, it's something to share. I think that will be what my faith has taught me about approaching my music. Not that, aren't I cool because I can play this 12-bar blues like this, but actually here's this gift for you guys who are listening, whether that's sitting in a club or on an album or on a live stream. It's a question of sharing this thing that you've got. And as humanity, if we all share our gifts together, we'll somehow end up at a better place than where we were.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question about, we talked about the live stream and stuff like that, and we all know that people are used to get everything free on the internet. So what's your point on that? Like how can musicians get some money from online stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to build up a value with people. It's difficult because we do live in a market-driven economy. So no one owes you a living is the first thing I'd say to musicians. Is it is hard. The difficulty is people do want everything for free online. You've got to get to that. I guess you've got to get to that point, and it's very difficult to get to, where people feel like I did watching that Winton gig at Smalls, where it's like, I'm so happy watching this. Here's my money for the entrance fee. But I think as musicians, we need to educate the audience as well, and we need people to understand. But there's always going to be people who want the stuff for free. And I come back to something that I read in a guy called Tim Ferriss. I don't know if people are aware of that who are listening. He's a podcaster and author. And he said when he launched his book, The 4-Hour Work Week, about 15 years ago, and he used to get really, really wound up about people sharing the PDF of his book. And someone said to him, Tim, they're not your audience. They're not your readers. If someone wants to buy it for free, they're not your readers. And I guess the way I look at it is that if people don't want to pay for my music, then they're not my audience. They might be dipping in, but they're not going to be my audience. And I guess if you've got to build it up, and Patreon, I think, is a great place for trying to communicate with people. I find it difficult to keep coming up with new content all the time for Patreon. But it is a great way to harness. I want to be able to get better at harnessing that. People say, oh, well, you've got all these followers on YouTube, it must bring in the money. And I'm like, and it's like, when I get the royalty checks from streaming services and it's like £25, I'm thinking, yeah, well, kids, we can eat tonight, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. So you've got to kind of make it. And I guess the way I always look at it is I was always in this position when I decided to do music full time. I was always like, I'm dedicating myself to this. I'll find a way of making it pay. And I think you know, again, being like I said about lockdown, you've got to be creative and find ways. But I recommend Patreon. Kickstarter's a good way. I did Kickstarters to get both these albums behind me up and running. And you've got to get people in there to be able to do it. But it is hard. But until the audiences are educated enough to understand that they have to, you know, someone's got to pay for it, it's difficult.
Okay, so we have another question from Charles. Yeah. Is it better to make gigs ticketed for price or free plus requests for donations?
One of my adult students came up with a great one. He had a little saxophone quartet grouping in Cambridge, and he said that what we do, we make the concert free, but people have to pay to leave. So it was kind of like, you know, you make a donation, but you have to make the donation to leave rather than come in. I think you have to set a price. Well, I'll roll back. I think it depends what you want to achieve. If you're doing it to get money in for you need to pay people for that, then it is better to ticket it if you have to do it that way around. But if you want to get exposure for it, you know, if you want to get more people to like your music, then, you know, you have to maybe put free out there. But it's a tricky argument. There's a great book called The Savvy Musician. And in it, the guy talks about how people hear music first, then they buy it. You know, in the past, when we used to go to record stores, we would listen to the music either on headphones in the store itself, or you would hear it on the radio. You like it, you go and buy it. Do you like that artist? You become aware of that artist and the quality of music they produce. Therefore, you automatically buy it. So it's like, you know, I know who Chris Potter is. Chris Potter brings out a new album. I'm going to buy it. The difficulty these days, I think, and something I've noticed in the last 10 years, even personally, with the advent of streaming services, is there's so much now. It's too hard to consume it all. You know, I used to buy a CD and I'd have that CD on in the car and I would listen to it, you know, 5 or 6 times over a month, over the whole album. Now with playlists, you know, I might get a new album, I might listen to it twice, and then something else comes along, and this comes along, and that comes along, and yeah, it's a difficult one. But I guess, yeah, I think you need to create value, and it's better to stick a price on something. People, tip jar doesn't really work, I'm afraid. Sadly, reminds me of a story I once heard about. A rich emir from, you know, one of the Arab states came to London and had requested a chiropractor, and the chiropractor, sorry, the accountant of the emir had found his friend who was an accountant. It was a chiropractor, sorry, and he said, "Can you come and sort this emir out? He needs a chiropractor." And it got to the end of the consultation and given him the whole massage and everything, and the chiropractor spoke to the accountant and said, "What do I do within Arab culture? You know, is it rude to ask for the price? What should I do?" And he said, "Well, why don't you just do an invoice and put on it, the emir is always fair." And so he said he did that, sent off the invoice to the emir, and back came a check for £10,000 for like a half-hour consultation. And he told his friend, the accountant, this story, to which the accountant sent the chiropractor invoice that said, "The chiropractor is always fair." So there you go. Little story on that. The accountants will always get you at some point.
Yeah. Did you hear the old story about the Spotify CEO? Like he was saying that a musician can record music once every 3 or 4 years, and they think that's going to be enough, and it's not. What do you think about that? Like, it's people got really angry about him. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the model's always changed for music. You know, I guess my argument is to be going back to that integrity thing that I spoke right about at the start. I find it difficult to be a Syos. Sorry, not Syos. Spotify. It's Monday afternoon. I find it difficult to be a streaming basher because as a student of the music, as a musician, I find streaming amazing. You know, one of the things I've done for my Patreons is I started doing it at lockdown, is put a new playlist up every week of music that I found for them. So I've got, you know, Bramford as a sideman, Stan Getz as a sideman. You know, I've found all these really, really strange, you know, weird recordings of people that I've found on these streaming services that I'm able to share. But yeah, when it comes to my own music, the rewards are pitiful. But people are getting out there and hearing my music. And who's to say that they'll hear my music, they'll maybe come to a gig, they'll maybe buy a CD at a gig or buy a gig ticket, you know, like Charles was asking. Yeah, gig tickets are really important, and maybe they'll become, you know, really, really prominent supporters. Maybe they'll join my Patreon. Maybe then they'll give to my Kickstarter. You know, there's all sorts of different ways without discounting it down. And a lot of musicians get uppity about Spotify, and I understand why when the rate that they're paying per stream. But at the end of the day, is it better that people are on Spotify and paying you something for your stream, and if you do become successful, you get some reward? Or do we go back to the days of Napster when people are just sharing files for nothing and no one gets anything? And it's kind of like the genie's out of the box. You either kind of like catch up with it or you sit and complain about it.
Yeah, it's complicated. And Yannick, he said about what you said last about the free stuff. He said that he's totally agree, and most people will seek for free content on YouTube or internet. But we need to, as you say, like educate people to pay for because being a musician is a job, so you need to get some money at some point.
It is, but I would say yes, but you know, a lot of musicians spend a lot of time sitting around complaining about it, and actually, if you go out there and figure out another way of getting your income from different things, you know, it's a bit like what happened when recorded music came along. The sheet music salespeople who sold music for pianos were going to go out of business, they thought, and they started complaining about it, and they set up lots and lots of lobbying, and they were like, you can't do recorded music because you're going to put us out. And actually, people still buy sheet music, not in the volumes that they did, but people still buy sheet music, like the same way people still buy vinyl today. You know, although the question is, will we all be buying CDs in 25 years' time and sitting around going about how great the quality of the audio is just for nostalgic value?
Yeah, some people are buying new. Okay, how do you say that in English? Like cassettes?
Oh, the cassette. Yeah,
tapes. Yeah. It's trendy again.
Yeah, everything comes around
underground. Yeah. So we have a new question from Raphael. With the home studio becoming mainstream, do you find it as inspiring for music creation as the old tried and true recording studio?
Definitely not. I still think, as I said earlier on, there's nothing that beats getting into a studio and making music with other musicians. For jazz particularly, the best recordings I've done are everyone in the same room playing as live, you know, as if you would do for a concert. And then, you know, it's hard, you know, you have to, you know, you can't just go back and recover a wrong note or something. You have to basically then do the whole take again or just leave it in there. But yeah, I think, you know, I was watching Bohemian Rhapsody, the film, the other day again, and, you know, you just look at the skill that Queen went into the studio and layering all that stuff down and making use of that technology. And we can do it all on our computers now, but I think actually being there and doing it, there's a lot more to be said for it because of what we feel as human beings in terms of how we respond to music that's been made together, of people together.
Yeah, so and we have the following question from Creban Studios. So they say that going off of Raphael's question, do you think it's become a necessity for musicians to be able to produce at home?
I love that logo, by the way. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's nice.
Really, really cool. It has, in a way, become a necessity, and actually now with COVID, it's become absolutely crucial because otherwise you couldn't do it. I had in my previous studio, I had an area that I used to do a lot of sessions, and I still do. And with COVID, it became the norm where people would Dropbox me a certain file. I redo the recording, then send it back to them. And in a way, it is great because it means you don't have to drive to the studio, you don't have to. Sit in traffic for a couple of hours to get to London to get to a particular recording studio. You can maximize your time. It's a bit easier. But with the best will in the world, if it's a really top-notch studio, like when I did my Jazz Vespers, this one at Air Lyndhurst, which is where they did like all the Pirates of the Caribbean recordings, the James Bond films, the microphones and the facilities that they have available is just incredible. But I've got to say, on the flip side, when we were doing the mix down, the guy's got this old massive analog desk with about 200 channels on it, and he spends almost the whole day on Pro Tools on his Mac. He barely touches the desk. Everything gets routed through Pro Tools. So there isn't this necessity to be in that sort of situation. But I still think I personally produce better music when I have to go to a proper studio. I think there's something really special about going into those places. And I guess bringing it back around again, like it is going into a venue and playing music rather than playing it at home. There is something really special about that.
Thank you. Do you have any plans for Charlie Parker's birthday on the 29th?
It is Charlie Parker's 100th birthday on Saturday, and I am so gutted because my main plan was to be at the graveside, like with everybody else playing this year, because normally in previous years people go along to Bird's graveside in Kansas. And I'd planned the trip. I mean, I never got beyond sort of looking at booking flights earlier the year, and then with COVID, obviously, it's killed it all. But I'm going to play some Charlie Parker. I'm going to get my alto out, and I'm going to, I don't know, if everyone wasn't away on holiday, because it's like the last week of the summer holidays here in the UK this weekend, I would have probably got together. But I'm gonna play some Bird, and I'll probably share some playlists on Patreon, and I'll definitely do a vlog for it as well. I mean, I look at it now, and I'm now 5 years older than Bird was, and he died, and I just think, gosh, to get to 35 and have that impact on the music that he did is just incredible. And there's still people now you look at it, you look at the tenor players, the lineage of tenor players that you can go and you can almost go, they're all in the same league, whether it's Coltrane, Henderson, Sonny Rollins, Wayne Shorter, they're all phenomenal players. And you kind of go Charlie Parker. And then you tell me an alto player that kind of is sitting on the same level as Bird. It's really, the testament to that is like Sonny Stitt stopped playing alto for a long time because he just couldn't get out of Bird's shadow. It just an incredible thing. And I guess the difficulty I always find with Bird's music is we haven't got enough of it. There's a lot of those scrapey tapes from these dial recordings and stuff. And I just wish we had more stuff to document. There was that recording ban during the Second World War that meant that so much of that early bebop stuff just was never recorded. But definitely celebrating Bird's birthday on the 100th, and this was why I got you to make me a mouthpiece in white, purely because of Charlie Parker.
Yeah,
I just wanted the white mouthpiece. So that's cool. But yeah, no. What about you guys? Got anything? Is there anything? I guess everything's just like. So
yeah, it's crazy because actually on the 29th it's also Syos' 4th birthday, and at some point we wanted to organize like a big concert with a lot of Syos artists playing Bird's songs, and with all the crisis, and it's totally just.
Well, what we'll have to do is one of my friends. She was 40 this year, but she said because she couldn't have a party, she's 40 next year instead. So that's what we'll have to do. We'll have to just kind of say that, put everything on to next year. Next year is going to be a very busy year with a lot of people. But I wanted to share one last thing with people about it. I heard, going back to Tim Ferriss, I heard a podcast he did, and he talked about the last time we had a global pandemic, of course, was the what was called the Spanish flu in 1819. And, particularly after I visited you guys in Paris, I went up to Thiepval, to the war memorial there. And of course, what happened at the last global pandemic had just come after the terrible events of the First World War. We suffered, particularly France had suffered horribly. And he said, we get quite despondent. He said, but the decade that came after that, 100 years ago, after the last, was known as the Roaring Twenties. So people had lots of fun. People went out. People enjoyed themselves. We won't talk about what happened in the 1930s. Obviously, we'll forget about that idea. But certainly, this kind of idea that we're all quite glum about it. But I think there's something within the human spirit. We'll get out there and we will go and enjoy concerts, and we will go and enjoy 1918. Gas Charlie, sorry, 1819. I was referring to 1918, 1919. But yeah, we will get out there, and people will be out, and we're going to have some really good concerts. We'll do it for your 5th birthday.
Yeah, okay, nice.
On the 101st birthday of Charlie Parker.
Yeah.
So it'll be good.
Okay, so just to finish, can you just maybe as a conclusion give like really a few tips for like musicians that that are really beginners on the social media, that want to create like their first Instagram page or YouTube page, and what should they do first? And
I would say pick one channel for now. Don't try and spread yourself across all the different channels, because each channel has a different audience and a different audience expectation. YouTube has an expectation that you're going to produce something pretty long and pretty extensive, so maybe YouTube isn't the place to start. If you were going on Insta, think of a story that you want to tell. So maybe it's a story you want to tell about a particular standard that you enjoy. Maybe it has a particular resonance to you. Maybe it speaks to a particular point in your life or a particular experience of when you started playing the instrument. But I would pick one channel. Think about your content you're going to put up. Don't necessarily be completely spontaneous. Think about what you're going to put up and what message you're trying to get over to people. And I guess think about what you want people to do with that. Do you want people just to enjoy that? Or do you want them to actually come and visit your website? Do you want them then to buy something, a book, an ebook, or get a lesson with you, or come to your concert? There has to be, in a way, an idea of what is it leading to as we go on.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. We have just one
last question at the bottom.
Last question. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on running pedal effects with your horn? Is there space for that? And if so, how does the Syos mouthpiece translate in that sonic space?
Wow. Well, I have done a vlog about using my pedals on my instrument, so you can maybe check that out. But I wasn't on the Syos then. I wouldn't do it at the moment, mainly because Pauline and the guys have created me such a beautiful mouthpiece that I just kind of want it to sound like the way it sounds. And I'm actually in a position at the minute where I like what my saxophone sounds like, which is not always been the case. I guess, yeah, it depends where you're going for. I mean, I did an album called What If Rupert Murdoch Liked Jazz, which we did a lot of effects, a lot of octave pedals and wah-wah pedals live and loop pedals and stuff like that. I'm not doing that at the moment. I'm principally playing acoustic jazz. So yeah, I mean, I get, it's just, for me, it's not the kind of music I want to produce at this moment in time. I've done it a couple of times, but for me, I'm playing acoustic jazz really at the moment. That's where I'm at with it. I don't know how it would affect. I guess it's all sorts of different things about what it would do to the sound of the mouthpiece that I didn't want it to do. I mean, I guess what you were saying before, Pauline, about how the difficulty with the saxophone is, of course, you don't get the sound out of the mic. Mic and a saxophone is so difficult, and kind of the acoustic properties of how the instrument responds, and you'll only be getting a certain amount of signal through for the pedals, I guess, wouldn't you? Acoustically. So yeah, I hope that was that.
Yeah, but that's an interesting question. I think we have a nice French musician called Guillaume Perret, who is using a lot of pedals. So that was an interesting question. I think I will ask him to do a masterclass on that next time. That would be interesting.
Yeah, that's lovely.
So yeah, thank you very much for being there. Charles is saying great masterclass. Thanks. Definitely.
You're welcome, Charles. Thank you.
So And yeah, thank you very much. It was a really interesting talk. I guess if people still have some question, maybe they can just reach on your YouTube page.
Go
or
to either my YouTube channel or hit me on Twitter at Dan Forshaw, or Facebook Dan Forshaw, or Instagram is Dan Forshaw Jazz.
Yeah, so just follow Dan in all the social media, and yeah, I'm sure I will be happy to answer your question if you have. And yeah, thank you again, and have a good evening.
You too. You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.